The grand ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and golden decorations. Kate stood near the entrance wearing her elegant navy blue dress that perfectly matched her sapphire earrings. The charity banquet was one of the most important events of the year, and hundreds of guests filled the magnificent hall. She smiled gracefully as photographers captured her arrival. The flashing cameras created tiny bursts of light around her face. Kate had attended many such events before, but tonight felt different somehow. There was an unusual heaviness in her chest that she couldn't quite explain. William walked beside her, looking handsome in his black tuxedo. His warm hand rested gently on her back as they moved through the crowd. People turned to watch them pass, whispering excitedly about the royal couple's presence at the event. The evening had started perfectly. Kate had spent hours getting ready, carefully choosing every detail of her appearance. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo, and her makeup was flawless. She wanted everything to be perfect for tonight's important fundraising dinner. As they entered the main dining area, the delicious smell of gourmet food filled the air. Waiters in crisp white uniforms carried silver trays filled with champagne glasses. The sound of gentle classical music mixed with the cheerful chatter of the guests. Kate paused to speak with several important donors who had contributed generously to the charity. She listened carefully to their stories and thanked them for their kindness. Her genuine interest in their work made each person feel special and appreciated. The banquet organizers had worked for months to make everything perfect. Beautiful white roses decorated every table, and soft candlelight created a romantic atmosphere. The charity was raising money for children's hospitals, a cause that was very close to Kate's heart. William noticed that Kate seemed slightly tired, but she assured him she was fine. She had been working very hard lately, attending numerous events and meetings. The busy schedule was beginning to take its toll, though she tried not to show it. As they moved toward their assigned table, Kate stopped to greet more guests. She had a natural ability to make everyone feel comfortable and welcome. Her warm smile and kind words made people feel like they were talking to an old friend rather than a member of the royal family. The evening's program included speeches from several charity leaders and a special auction to raise additional funds. Kate looked forward to hearing about all the wonderful work being done to help sick children and their families. Despite the festive atmosphere, Kate couldn't shake the strange feeling that had been bothering her all day. She felt slightly dizzy and had a mild headache, but she didn't want to worry William or disappoint the many people who were excited to see her. The banquet hall continued to fill with more distinguished guests. Politicians, business leaders, and celebrities all came together for this important cause. Kate knew that her presence would help raise awareness and encourage more people to donate money to the charity. As the evening progressed, Kate tried to ignore the growing discomfort she was feeling. She focused on the mission of the charity and the important work they were doing. The thought of helping sick children gave her strength to continue, despite not feeling her best. William stayed close by her side, occasionally checking to make sure she was comfortable. He knew his wife well enough to sense when something wasn't quite right, even when she tried to hide it from others. The dinner service began with an elegant first course of cream soup, served in delicate porcelain bowls. Kate picked up her silver spoon but found that her appetite had completely disappeared. The rich smell of food that had seemed so appealing earlier now made her stomach feel uneasy. She took small sips of water from her crystal glass, hoping it would help settle her growing nausea. William was engaged in conversation with the charity director sitting next to him, discussing plans for expanding the children's hospital program to rural areas. Kate tried to participate in the table conversation, but speaking required more effort than usual. Her voice sounded slightly weaker than normal, though she hoped nobody would notice. The other guests at their table were sharing stories about their own experiences with the charity's work. A wealthy businessman across from Kate was describing how the charity had helped his grandson recover from a serious illness. His emotional story touched everyone at the table, and Kate felt genuinely moved by his words despite her physical discomfort. The second course arrived with great fanfare. Waiters presented beautifully arranged plates of salmon with roasted vegetables and herb sauce. The presentation was stunning, but Kate could barely manage a few small bites. Food had never been unappealing to her before. William glanced over and noticed that Kate wasn't eating much. He leaned closer and quietly asked if everything was all right. Kate smiled and whispered that she was just excited about the evening's program and not very hungry. The charity's executive director stood up to give the first speech of the evening. She spoke passionately about the organization's mission and shared heartwarming stories of children who had been helped. The audience listened intently, many wiping tears from their eyes. During the speech, Kate felt a wave of dizziness wash over her. She gripped the edge of the table with her hand and tried to focus on the speaker's words. The room seemed to sway slightly, though she knew it was just her imagination. She excused herself quietly and walked to the ladies' room, hoping that splashing some cool water on her wrists might help her feel better. The ornate bathroom was empty and peaceful, providing a welcome break from the crowded banquet hall. Looking in the mirror, Kate noticed that her face appeared paler than usual despite her carefully applied makeup. She took several deep breaths and tried to convince herself that she was just tired from the long day. When she returned to the table, the main course was being served. The roasted beef looked delicious, but Kate knew she couldn't eat anything substantial. She moved the food around on her plate to make it appear as though she was eating. A famous singer took the stage to perform a special song dedicated to the children helped by the charity. Her beautiful voice filled the ballroom, and many guests were visibly moved by the emotional performance. Kate tried to concentrate on the music, but the room seemed unusually warm despite the air conditioning. She used her elegant fan to create a gentle breeze, but it provided only temporary relief from the uncomfortable feeling. The auction portion of the evening was about to begin, and Kate knew she needed to appear engaged and enthusiastic. Many people were watching her reactions, and she didn't want to disappoint anyone who had come specifically to see her. William noticed that Kate was unusually quiet and seemed to be struggling with something. He reached over and gently touched her hand, offering silent support without drawing attention from the other guests. The auctioneer began presenting the first item, a luxury vacation package donated by a generous supporter. The bidding started enthusiastically, with several guests raising their hands to place increasingly higher offers. The auction continued with excitement building throughout the ballroom. Guests were bidding generously on artwork, jewelry, and exclusive experiences. Kate tried to participate by applauding when items sold for impressive amounts, but each clap of her hands felt like it required enormous effort. A beautiful diamond necklace was presented as the next auction item. The jewelry sparkled brilliantly under the bright stage lights, creating rainbow reflections across the ceiling. The bidding war became intense as several wealthy collectors competed for the precious piece. Kate felt perspiration forming on her forehead despite the cool temperature in the room. She discreetly used her napkin to dab away the moisture, hoping nobody would notice her discomfort. The sounds of the auction seemed to be coming from very far away. William won the bid for a weekend at a luxury resort, planning to donate the prize back to the charity for another fundraising opportunity. His generous gesture earned enthusiastic applause from the entire audience, and Kate managed a proud smile for her husband's kindness. The room began to feel increasingly stuffy to Kate, even though the ventilation system was working perfectly. She loosened her necklace slightly and took slow, careful breaths. The crystal chandelier above seemed to be swaying gently, though she knew it was perfectly still. A special video presentation began showing the actual children who had been helped by the charity's programs. Young patients appeared on the large screen, sharing their stories of recovery and hope. The emotional footage brought tears to many eyes throughout the audience. Kate found herself becoming overwhelmed by the children's brave faces and inspiring stories. Her heart raced with emotion, but something felt different about her physical response. The usual warm feeling of joy was mixed with an alarming sense of weakness. The video showed a little girl who had received a life-saving heart operation. The child's grateful smile and cheerful personality touched everyone in the room. Kate felt deeply moved, but also strangely disconnected from her surroundings. During a particularly touching moment in the video, Kate felt her vision becoming slightly blurry. She blinked several times and tried to focus on the screen, but the images seemed to drift in and out of clarity. Her breathing became more shallow and rapid. William was completely absorbed in the presentation and didn't immediately notice Kate's distress. She didn't want to interrupt the emotional moment by drawing attention to herself. The other guests at their table were also focused entirely on the inspiring stories being shared. The charity director announced that the evening had already raised more money than any previous year. The audience erupted in celebration, with people standing to applaud the incredible achievement. Kate attempted to stand with everyone else but felt unsteady on her feet. She gripped the back of her chair for support and managed to remain upright during the standing ovation. The room filled with the sound of enthusiastic clapping and cheering. Kate's smile felt forced, but she was determined to show her support for the important cause. As people began to sit down again, Kate felt a strange rushing sensation in her ears. The sounds of the banquet became muffled and distant. She tried to shake off the uncomfortable feeling and focus on the continuing program. A famous chef was introduced as the final speaker of the evening. He had donated his services to cater the entire banquet and wanted to share his personal connection to the charity. His story began with humor and warmth that delighted the audience. Kate attempted to listen to the chef's entertaining speech, but concentration became increasingly difficult. Her hands felt cold despite the warm atmosphere in the room. She clasped them together in her lap and tried to appear normal and engaged. The chef described how the charity had helped his own nephew overcome a serious illness several years earlier. His voice cracked with emotion as he spoke about watching his family struggle through the difficult time. The personal story resonated deeply with everyone present. Kate felt genuine compassion for the chef's story, but her physical symptoms were becoming impossible to ignore. A wave of nausea stronger than before made her press her lips together tightly. She closed her eyes briefly and tried to regain her composure. The chef's speech continued with heartfelt gratitude toward the medical staff who had saved his nephew's life. He spoke about the sleepless nights his family had endured and the hope that the charity had provided during their darkest hours. His words brought many guests to tears. Kate tried desperately to focus on the touching story, but her world was becoming increasingly unstable. The elegant chandeliers seemed to blur together into streams of golden light. She blinked rapidly, hoping to clear her vision, but the problem only seemed to worsen. Her heart was beating much faster than normal, creating a rhythmic pounding in her chest that felt overwhelming. Kate placed her hand discreetly over her heart, trying to calm the rapid beating. She took slow, deep breaths but found little relief. The temperature in the room felt like it was rising dramatically, though she knew the climate control was perfectly regulated. Tiny beads of perspiration formed along her hairline despite her efforts to stay cool. Her beautiful navy dress suddenly felt restrictive and uncomfortable. William was still listening intently to the chef's emotional speech, occasionally nodding in agreement with the speaker's points. He had no idea that Kate was struggling just inches away from him. She didn't want to create a disturbance during such an important moment. Kate reached for her water glass with a trembling hand, hoping that a cold drink might help stabilize her condition. However, when she tried to lift the crystal glass, her grip felt uncertain and weak. She carefully returned it to the table without taking a sip. The chef was now describing the moment when doctors told his family that the operation had been successful. His voice filled with joy and relief as he shared the happy ending to their frightening experience. The audience responded with warm applause and smiles. During the applause, Kate felt a sudden sharp pain shoot through her head. She winced slightly but tried to maintain her composure. The pain was unlike any headache she had ever experienced before. It felt like pressure building behind her eyes. The room began to feel like it was moving in slow motion around her. Voices became distant and echo-like, as if she was hearing them from underwater. Kate gripped the edge of her chair and tried to anchor herself to reality. A wave of intense dizziness washed over her entire body. The elegant ballroom started spinning slowly around her, like a beautiful but terrifying carousel. Kate closed her eyes tightly, hoping the sensation would pass quickly. When she opened her eyes again, everything appeared strangely bright and out of focus. The faces of other guests looked blurred and dreamlike. Kate realized with growing alarm that something was seriously wrong with her physical condition. She attempted to whisper William's name, but her voice came out as barely a breath. Her throat felt tight and dry, making it difficult to produce any sound. Panic began to set in as she realized she couldn't communicate her distress. The chef was concluding his speech with a passionate call for continued support of the charity's mission. He thanked everyone for their generosity and encouraged them to spread awareness about the organization's important work. Kate felt her strength leaving her body like air slowly escaping from a balloon. Her legs became weak and unsteady beneath her. She tried to shift her weight in the chair, but found movement increasingly difficult and disorienting. The applause for the chef's speech grew louder and more enthusiastic. People were standing again to show their appreciation for his touching words and generous contribution to the evening. Kate knew she should stand with them but couldn't trust her legs to support her. Her vision began to narrow, like looking through a tunnel that was slowly closing. The bright lights of the ballroom became dim and hazy around the edges. Kate fought against the strange sensation, determined not to cause a scene. William finally glanced over at Kate and immediately noticed something was wrong. Her face had lost most of its color, and her eyes looked unfocused and distant. He reached out to touch her arm and found that she was trembling slightly. Kate tried to smile reassuringly at William, but even that simple gesture required tremendous effort. She could see the concern growing in his eyes as he realized she was in distress. She wanted to tell him she was fine, but words wouldn't come. William leaned closer to Kate and whispered urgently, asking if she needed to leave the banquet immediately. His voice sounded concerned but calm, trying not to alarm the other guests at their table. Kate attempted to shake her head no, but the movement made her dizziness much worse. The standing ovation for the chef continued around them, while William carefully studied Kate's face. He could see that her skin had become pale and slightly gray. Her breathing appeared shallow and rapid, like someone who had just finished running a long distance. Kate's hands were now visibly shaking as she tried to maintain her grip on the table edge. The trembling was becoming impossible to hide, and she felt embarrassed about her lack of control. She had always prided herself on remaining composed in public situations. The charity director returned to the podium to make final announcements about the evening's success. She shared the impressive total amount of money that had been raised and thanked all the generous donors. The crowd responded with enthusiastic cheering and applause. During the noise and celebration, William quietly called Kate's name several times. She could hear him speaking but found it difficult to focus on his words. Everything sounded muffled and distant, as if she was listening from inside a thick fog. Kate's field of vision continued to narrow dramatically. The beautiful ballroom was disappearing piece by piece, leaving only a small circle of fuzzy light in front of her. She blinked repeatedly, desperately trying to restore her normal sight. The weakness in her body was becoming overwhelming and frightening. Kate felt like she was slowly sinking into quicksand, unable to fight against the pull. Her muscles seemed to have lost their strength and ability to respond to her commands. William noticed that Kate was no longer responding to his whispered questions. Her eyes looked glazed and unfocused, staring straight ahead without really seeing anything. He realized that her condition was rapidly becoming serious and potentially dangerous. The final speaker began thanking various sponsors and volunteers who had made the banquet possible. The lengthy list of acknowledgments would normally have held Kate's attention, but now the words meant nothing to her confused mind. Kate felt her body temperature dropping suddenly, as if someone had opened a freezer door next to her. She began shivering uncontrollably despite the warm atmosphere in the crowded ballroom. The contrast between hot and cold sensations was disorienting and alarming. Her heart rate increased even more, creating a drumming sound in her ears that drowned out the speaker's voice. Kate could feel her pulse throbbing in her neck and wrists. The rapid beating made her feel like her heart might burst from her chest. William discreetly signaled to their security detail, indicating that they might need to leave quickly. The trained professionals immediately began positioning themselves for a potential emergency departure. They had experience handling medical situations involving high-profile individuals. Kate tried one more time to speak and tell William that she was feeling better, but no words would come from her throat. Her mouth felt dry and cottony, making speech impossible. She was losing the ability to communicate her needs or fears. The room began spinning faster around her, like a carnival ride that was completely out of control. Kate closed her eyes tightly and tried to make the terrible sensation stop. The spinning motion made her stomach feel sick and unstable. As the final acknowledgments continued from the podium, Kate felt her grip on consciousness beginning to slip away. She fought against the strange pulling sensation, but her strength was almost completely gone. Fear crept into her mind as she realized what was happening. William moved his chair closer to Kate's and put his arm around her shoulders for support. He could feel how unsteady she had become, and knew that immediate action was necessary. His protective instincts kicked in as he prepared to help his wife. The charity director was concluding her remarks and preparing to invite everyone to continue socializing during the dessert service. The formal program was nearly finished, but Kate knew she wouldn't be able to stay for the remainder of the evening. Kate's vision became completely dark around the edges, leaving only a tiny pinpoint of light in the center. She felt herself swaying in her chair despite William's supportive arm. The elegant banquet hall was disappearing from her awareness as consciousness began to fade away. The moment arrived without warning when Kate's body could no longer fight against the overwhelming weakness. Her eyes rolled back slightly and she began to collapse forward in her chair. The elegant composure she had maintained throughout the evening finally gave way to her medical emergency. William's reflexes kicked in instantly as he saw Kate beginning to fall. His strong arms moved quickly to catch her before she could hit the table or fall to the floor. He pulled her gently against his chest, supporting her completely as her body went limp. The guests at their table immediately noticed what was happening and gasped in alarm. Several people jumped up from their chairs, ready to help in any way possible. The charity director at the podium was still speaking, unaware of the emergency unfolding in the audience. Kate's breathing became very shallow and irregular as William held her unconscious form. Her face was now completely pale, and her lips had lost their natural pink color. The beautiful woman who had looked so radiant earlier in the evening now appeared fragile and vulnerable. William called her name softly but urgently, hoping to bring her back to consciousness. He gently patted her cheek and spoke directly into her ear, but Kate remained completely unresponsive. Her head lolled against his shoulder like a sleeping child's. The security team immediately sprang into action, creating a protective barrier around the couple while someone radioed for medical assistance. They worked quickly and efficiently to clear a path toward the nearest exit. Their training prepared them for exactly this type of emergency situation. Other guests throughout the ballroom began to notice the commotion at the royal table. Whispers spread quickly through the crowd as people realized something serious was happening. Many stood up to get a better view, creating additional confusion in the elegant venue. A doctor who was attending the banquet as a guest rushed over to offer his professional assistance. William carefully lowered Kate onto the floor, supporting her head and neck while the doctor checked her vital signs. Her pulse was rapid but steady, which provided some reassurance. The charity director finally realized what was happening and quickly concluded her remarks. She asked the guests to remain calm and continue enjoying their evening, while the medical situation was handled privately. The band began playing soft music to help maintain a peaceful atmosphere. William knelt beside Kate on the marble floor, holding her hand and speaking to her in quiet, loving tones. He told her that help was coming and that she would be fine. His voice remained calm and steady despite his inner worry and fear. Kate's breathing gradually became more regular under the doctor's care, though she remained unconscious. The medical professional explained to William that she appeared to be suffering from severe exhaustion, combined with possible dehydration. He recommended immediate transport to a hospital for proper evaluation. Emergency medical technicians arrived within minutes, having been called by the security team. They quickly assessed Kate's condition and prepared her for transport to the nearest medical facility. Their professional equipment and expertise provided additional comfort to William and the concerned guests. As the paramedics worked, Kate began to show small signs of returning consciousness. Her eyelids fluttered slightly, and she made soft sounds that indicated she was becoming aware of her surroundings. William squeezed her hand gently and told her everything would be all right. The medical team carefully placed Kate onto a stretcher, ensuring her comfort and safety during the transfer. William walked beside the stretcher, never letting go of her hand. The guests who remained in the ballroom watched with concern and sent their thoughts and prayers. Before leaving the venue, William briefly addressed the worried guests and organizers. He thanked them for their understanding and assured everyone that Kate would receive the best possible medical care. He also encouraged them to continue supporting the important charity that had brought them together. The ambulance waited outside the elegant hotel, its emergency lights flashing but sirens silent out of respect for the dignified nature of the situation. William climbed into the vehicle beside Kate, determined to stay with her throughout whatever medical challenges lay ahead. As they departed for the hospital, Kate's eyes opened briefly and she looked up at William with confusion and embarrassment. She whispered an apology for ruining the important evening, but William hushed her gently and told her that her health was the only thing that mattered to him. The charity banquet continued in their absence, with guests saying prayers for Kate's recovery and discussing how much they admired William's quick thinking and devotion. The evening raised not only money for sick children, but also demonstrated the power of love and care in times of crisis. The hospital emergency room buzzed with quiet efficiency as Kate was wheeled through the automatic doors. William walked closely beside the stretcher, his formal tuxedo looking out of place in the medical environment. The emergency staff had been notified of their arrival and was prepared to provide immediate care. Dr. Sarah Chen, the head of emergency medicine, took charge of Kate's case personally. She had years of experience treating patients with various conditions and immediately began a thorough examination. Her calm professionalism helped ease William's anxiety about his wife's mysterious collapse. Kate was now fully conscious, but felt weak and confused about what had happened at the banquet. She remembered feeling unwell during the evening but couldn't understand why her body had failed her so completely. The bright hospital lights made her squint as medical staff worked around her. Blood tests were ordered immediately to check for various possible causes of Kate's collapse. The medical team suspected severe dehydration combined with exhaustion, but they wanted to rule out more serious conditions. William stayed close by, holding Kate's hand and providing emotional support. Within an hour, the test results began returning to Dr. Chen's computer. Kate's blood work showed signs of dehydration and low blood sugar, likely caused by not eating properly while maintaining an extremely busy schedule. The doctor explained that her body had simply reached its breaking point. Kate felt embarrassed about causing such a dramatic scene at the important charity event. She worried about the negative publicity that might result from her collapse and how it might affect the organization's fundraising efforts. William reassured her that everyone understood and cared only about her recovery. Dr. Chen recommended that Kate remain in the hospital overnight for observation and intravenous fluids to restore her body's proper balance. She explained that while the condition wasn't life-threatening, it required proper treatment to prevent future episodes. Rest and nutrition would be essential for full recovery. The hospital's private wing provided a quiet, comfortable room where Kate could rest without disturbance from media or curious visitors. William arranged to stay with her throughout the night, refusing to leave her side despite the hospital's offer to provide a separate accommodation. As IV fluids began flowing into Kate's system, she started feeling notably better within just a few hours. Her color returned to normal, and her energy levels slowly improved. The medical team was pleased with her rapid response to treatment and optimistic about her prognosis. News of Kate's collapse had spread quickly through social media and news outlets, but William's team worked to manage the information responsibly. They released a brief statement explaining that Kate was receiving excellent medical care and was expected to make a full recovery soon. Messages of concern and support poured in from around the world. The charity organizers sent flowers and expressed their gratitude for Kate's dedication to their cause. Many noted that her commitment to helping others had contributed to her exhaustion, making her sacrifice even more meaningful. Dr. Chen visited Kate again the following morning and was pleased with her progress. The blood tests showed significant improvement in all areas, and Kate's vital signs had returned to normal ranges. The doctor cleared her for discharge with specific instructions for continued care. William helped Kate get dressed in comfortable clothes that had been brought from home. She moved slowly but steadily, grateful to be feeling like herself again. The frightening experience had reminded both of them about the importance of maintaining proper health while fulfilling their public duties. Before leaving the hospital, Kate insisted on personally thanking every member of the medical staff who had cared for her. She was particularly grateful to Dr. Chen, whose expertise and kindness had made a difficult situation much easier to handle. The charity organizers called later that day to report that the banquet had ultimately raised more money than ever before. Kate's medical emergency had actually increased awareness about the importance of self-care and inspired additional donations from concerned supporters. Over the following weeks, Kate made a complete recovery by following Dr. Chen's recommendations for proper nutrition, adequate rest, and reasonable scheduling. She learned to listen more carefully to her body's signals and prioritize her health, alongside her important charitable work. The experience brought Kate and William even closer together, reminding them that their love and partnership were more important than any public obligation. William's quick actions and unwavering support during the crisis demonstrated the strength of their relationship and mutual devotion. Kate eventually returned to her full schedule of royal duties, but with a new understanding of the importance of balance. The dramatic evening at the charity banquet became a turning point that led to better health practices and an even more meaningful commitment to helping others while caring for herself.